Thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight, Black Voices. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at. Chicago aldermen on how to address the city's billion-dollar budget deficit as an end-of-year deadline looms. And former mayoral candidate Willie Wilson supports a federal military deployment to Chicago. He's here to explain why. First off tonight, day one of the federal government shutdown is in the books. And despite the shutdown's impact across government services, Governor J.B. Pritzker says he expects President Donald Trump to continue with his plans to send military troops to Illinois.
Unfortunately, the president is likely to keep the militarization going. He can do that because there are emergency personnel and military personnel that he can keep on the job. He is likely to do that.
Earlier this week, Pritzker said the Department of Homeland Security was seeking the deployment of 100 military troops to protect federal immigration agents in Illinois after the arrest of protesters over the weekend at a facility in West Suburban Broadview. Trump has also repeatedly threatened to send the military into Chicago in recent months to address crime in the city, despite falling violent crime rates. We'll have more on calls for the National Guard to come to Chicago later in the program. Pope Leo has waded into a debate over abortion after U.S. Senator Dick Durbin declined an award from Chicago Cardinal Blaise Cupich. Cupich had planned to give Durbin a Lifetime Achievement Award recognizing his work helping immigrants. But some conservative U.S. bishops objected over the senator's stance on abortion rights. Pope Leo was asked about it late last night by a reporter with Catholic broadcaster EWTN News.
It's important to look at many issues that are related to what is the teaching of the church. Someone who says I'm against abortion but says I'm in favor of the death penalty is not really pro-life. So someone who says that I'm against abortion but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treatment of immigrants who are in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life. So they're very complex issues. I don't know if anyone has all the truth on them.
The Pope went on to ask the faithful for greater respect for one another. A new report on sudden infant deaths in Cook County shows a gaping racial disparity. Black infants died at 14 times the rate of white infants.
It's a luxury to love on your child. So my heart breaks for those parents who don't have that opportunity. But I want you to know that it's not your fault. When things happen, our unsafe living conditions are sometimes created by our socioeconomic statuses. We don't always desire to have those conditions, but we don't have a choice. So again, it's not your fault.
The report from the Cook County Medical Examiner and Rush University System for Health examined every unexpected infant death from 2019 to 2023, showing 208 babies died. The report shows 99% of them happened when the infant was sleeping in an unsafe environment, such as sharing a bed with an adult or in a space with soft items like blankets or pillows, or sleeping in baby loungers or nursing pillows. While sleep-related infant deaths declined modestly in 2022 and 23, officials say there's work ahead to raise awareness about safe infant sleeping practices. And it's on to Game 3 for the Chicago Cubs after a 3-0 loss to the San Diego Padres. The Padres took a 1-0 lead in the first inning, followed by a 2-run homer from Manny Machado in the fifth. Game 3 in the Wild Card Series is scheduled for 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon back at Wrigley Field. It'll determine which team faces the Milwaukee Brewers on Saturday. Up next, how the city plans to navigate a billion-dollar budget deficit. We talk with some members of the Chicago City Council right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, is made possible in part by the support of these donors.
It's a busy budget season in Chicago, and the city is staring down a whopping $1 billion shortfall next year. City officials have until the end of December to come up with a plan on how to address it. Mayor Brandon Johnson is set to present his budget plan to City Council on October 16th. Joining us now are two members of that council, Alderman Jason Irvin of the 28th Ward on the city's west side. He's also chair of the city's budget committee. And on Zoom, Alderman Matt Martin of the 47th Ward on the city's north side. Gentlemen, thanks to you both for being here. Alderman Irvin, I'm going to start with you. The mayor released his budget forecast at the end of August. And as we mentioned, it shows a $1.15 billion budget gap. Now, that is 2.7% higher than expected and 14% higher than last year's shortfall. And here's actually a little bit of the mayor. And he's talking about his task forces, his budget task forces, preliminary report.
One of the things that it's clear to note that the working group fully established that we do not have a spending problem in Chicago. We have a revenue challenge in Chicago. And that's an important conclusion that I believe was necessary for the people of Chicago to hear.
Alderman Irvin, do you agree with that characterization that it is not the spending problem, it's the revenue problem?
I think it's both. I know that we have some revenue challenges, but we also need to become more efficient in how we deliver services. Furthermore, we need to do a better job of managing our risk so we don't continue to get into all of these lawsuits and things that we continue to see all the time. It's not like these are one-time situations. These things continue to happen. So I think there's some work that we can do on the expense side of the ledger, but also there is a definite need for additional revenue in order to balance this out. I don't think we can cut our way out of this situation, nor do I think we can tax our way out of this situation.
When you say risks and lawsuits, what kind of lawsuits
So,
are you
for example,
talking about?
I mean, certain things, light poles falling on people. That's something I think we should be able to get a handle on and be able to deal with. Tripping hazards from sidewalks. Those are things that we know about that if we address them in a more frequent manner, then these don't lead to like we spend $1,000, save $500,000. So these are types of things we're speaking of.
To that point, of course, WTTW has done extensive reporting on the amount that the city has paid out in police misconduct settlements and lawsuits. Is that something that
Yes, and a part of the reforms in the police department, those are things that we need to be looking at, and those are things that, from a risk perspective, if we can bring down the cost of doing business, then that eats into that $1.15 billion deficit.
Alderman Matt Martin, same question to you with regards to whether or not the city has a spending problem or a revenue problem.
It's a mix. I think we have to start off by acknowledging that this has been decades in the making. This is historic fiscal mismanagement that involved missed pension payments, a hasty privatization of our parking meters, the Skyway, and we're seeing the chickens come home to roost when it comes to that. But in meeting people literally and figuratively where they are, as Chicagoans, they don't think this is just a revenue issue. We know that we're spending too much on third-party contracts. We have hundreds of vacant positions spread across departments that have been vacant for well over a year. I think it's incredibly important that we on City Council look first to tighten our belts before we go to taxpayers asking them to chip in more.
So last month, the mayor's budget task force, as we mentioned, releasing its preliminary report recommending 89 fixes to add $1 to $2 billion in revenue to the city's coffers, most notably an annual property tax hike tied to inflation. Last year, you all voted unanimously against the mayor's first proposal of a property tax. Alderman Martin, could you get behind one this year or in the future based on the recommendations of this task force?
I don't think it's appropriate for us to take anything off the table at this early stage, because that $1 billion budget gap, that's huge. Just to put that in perspective, that's about what we spend on our entire patrol budget for CPD. Or if we cut the entire Department of Streets and Sanitation, we would still have an $800 million gap. So I think we need to take a look at those proposals seriously. When I first got into office in 2019, I campaigned on viewing property taxes as a last resort, not saying under no circumstances, but to look at other things. And what I would like to see us do, especially being led by the mayor's office, is foster a more constructive relationship with Springfield. To be clear, they have their own budget challenges, but at the end of the day, if we're talking about asking individuals and organizations who are best positioned to chip in, that's going to be something that we do working in collaboration with Springfield. And to date, we haven't seen enough good results coming from those efforts.
Alderman Irvin, property taxes based on the recommendation of the task force?
I think that property taxes can be part of the conversation. Again, once we look at the expense side of this conversation, I think we can look at that. One thing that we have to notice, under the daily years, as they say, property taxes has been the third rail of politics. But if we had the incremental CPI type increases over time, if you go back from the 80s and into the 90s, we'd be at the same point that we are today, but we still own our parking meters. We still own the Skyway. So these situations where we have flat taxes for a period and then have to shoot them up, then go back flat again and shoot them up is not the best way to manage the revenue, nor is it fiscally responsible, because it puts us in these positions where we're selling things that we really should have in order to continue moving forward.
The City Council cannot apply a sales tax on services the way it does on goods without the support of the state, without state approval. How do you convince state officials to allow you to do that?
Well, I think it's the modernization. We have a sales tax program that's based in the 1930s economy, and here we are almost 100 years later with a different type of economy. Many states around us have made the move to a more progressive and more reasonable sales taxes on services. I think it's time for Illinois to do the same thing. Again, it would actually lower the tax rate that's being paid, and again, generate additional revenue that both the state needs and the units of government need as well.
Alderman Martin, closing the budget gap, like you both have said, it is a mix, right? So it will also mean raising revenue, but also cutting some services. Should Chicagoans be prepared to see some services scaled back?
It's a possibility for sure as we're looking to balance this, but it has to be done in a responsible way. I look at public safety services, infrastructure services as things that aren't going to be provided by other levels of government. That's got to be our core responsibility. So we need to ensure that we're looking under the couch cushions in every single department, but just as much as we should be avoiding regressive fines and fees, we also can't cut beyond the bone with city services that people need, because at the end of the day, do we want garbage service to happen less frequently? Absolutely not. Do we want less street sweeping to occur? No. Do we want street lights and traffic lights to remain out a few days or weeks longer than is already the case? Absolutely not. So it's finding that right balance of saying, what are those critical services? How are we going to pay for them? And how can we show that we are being more efficient, more fiscally responsible at the same time?
Chicago missed the deadline, which was today, to keep that 1% grocery tax in place. That's worth $40 million for the city. Alderman Martin, first to you, any appetite to reinstate that? And if you did, you wouldn't be able to start collecting on it until July of next year.
I haven't talked with any residents who are interested in us looking at that as one of many tools to fill our budget gap. And to be clear, we don't have a lot of great options before us, but I would like us to look at other things like properties that have been kept vacant intentionally, despite them being flanked by other properties that are being filled, especially on the commercial side. We can look into that, and also continuing to talk with our friends in Springfield, looking at our share of the state income tax. Used to be 10% about 15 to 20 years ago. It's now closer to 6%. I wonder if we could go and help the budget conversation at the state level, support them with the work they need to do, and simultaneously reap some of the benefits there. I think looking at an income tax set of proposals is going to be much better than nickel and diming people around grocery taxes.
Alderman Irvin.
I agree with Alderman Martin in that assertion. I think that we have to look at this holistically. We have to come up with stable, predictable revenue sources that will allow us to do the business of government. A dollar here, a dollar there, finding and feeing our way to this particular point is not how we're going to make this last in the long term. Now, granted, there are some things that need to be adjusted, as some of these fees, based on the work of the working group, have not been adjusted in a number of years. And I think we need to right-size those things and set them on an inflationary track so that we don't have to revisit those going forward. But again, we have to, really dig in, work with our partners at the state level, look at a bunch of options so that we can have a revenue mix that is stable and predictable that we can operate government on.
Last year, you all didn't get a budget proposal until the end of October almost. The process went well into December, which was a bit frightening, I think, for a lot of officials. About 20 seconds. Are you anticipating a smoother process this year? Has the mayor's office been proving to you it won't be quite as scary as last year?
I think that the scariness will come in the decisions that have to be made, right? So we'll get the budget on the 16th as proposed, and we'll have to figure out a path prior to the last Tuesday in December. So I'm hopeful that we will get it done. I think the options we have to discuss, and we just have to make some decisions when it boils down.
I think Chicagoans are hopeful that you all get it done much sooner as well.
Well, I hope that we do as well. But however, generally time, kind of can work for you, and sometimes it can work against you. But the fact that we actually have to pass a budget does mean something.
Best of luck to you both, Alderman Matt Martin, Alderman Jason Irvin. Thanks to you both.
Thank you for having us.
And on a programming note, next Monday we'll be joined in studio by Mayor Johnson himself to discuss the city budget and more. Up next, former mayoral candidate Willie Wilson on whether Chicago needs federal troops to fight crime. Threats of military deployment from the federal government are ratcheting up following the arrest of 5 protesters outside an ICE facility in suburban Broadview. The Trump administration now reportedly plans to send around 100 military troops to, as the administration claims, protect immigration agents. The president doubled down on his desire to unleash military strength on American cities yesterday.
San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. They're very unsafe places, and we're going to straighten them out one by one. And this is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war, too. It's a war from within. I told Pete we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military.
Governor J.B. Pritzker panned President Trump's comments, calling them appalling. Here's the governor earlier this week.
The MAGA Republican supported invasion of Portland and Chicago and LA and Washington, D.C. is not making us any safer. Instead, it is putting our people in danger. That's not preventing crime, as Donald Trump claims. That's threatening public safety.
Local businessman and former political candidate, including runs for mayor of Chicago, Willie Wilson is in support of a harsher crackdown on crime and says he would welcome National Guard troops into the city. And Willie Wilson joins us now. Welcome back. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
So far, Los Angeles, D.C., Memphis, they've all seen military deployments. We heard the president addressing the issue of violent crime. Pritzker says the Trump administration wants to deploy 100 troops to Chicago. We know that the Oregon National Guard is also working to comply with the president's call for 200 troops in Portland. Other spots in the country are under consideration, New Orleans, as well as in Missouri. How would you envision a National Guard operation playing out in Chicago?
Well, anything that helps to save life. This is very personal to me in terms of saving life because of the fact that I've lost a son to violence. And, so a lot of people lose their kids. The people don't get caught. This has been going on for years and years. Nobody get caught. Nobody seems to care about the people who lost a loved one. And because when you lose a loved one, half of your life go down into the grave with that loved one. And for people like the governor and the mayor to say they don't want National Guard into the city, well, they seem to have more sympathy for the people who get away than for the ones who lost loved ones.
Do you think a deployment of the National Guard would somehow assist in catching the people who commit those crimes?
Well, it happened in Washington, D.C. I was in Washington, D.C. yesterday. Look, no crime seemed to be there going on now. Look, they like 1,500 to 2,000 people, police officers short. Why not take advantage of this here that the president trying to bring troops in, mix together, talk, work things out together so we can stop the crime. I think that would help because they've proven to help them in the D.C. and these other places, so why fight it? This is a Turk thing that don't, look, they fail And since they failed, they don't want nobody to come in here and help them get the situation right.
So New York Times analyzed how National Guard activity in D.C. was changing local policing there, and they found that crime did fall significantly, finding that more than 50% of arrests accounted for drug and gun offenses, including those who had a license to carry weapons in surrounding states but did not possess a D.C. permit. Traffic and other minor violations accounted for 18%. Violent or property crimes made up 9% of cases that federal agents were involved in. And so there's lowering some of these crimes, but there's also, sir, a difference between, of course, preventing crime, right, and stopping it from happening, and solving cases, murder cases in particular, like some of the ones that you reference.
Yeah. Well, I think you need both. National Guard, you need program in place, helping people that trade school, helping these senior citizens get food. They're too scared to come out their home,
So you're talking about a lot of the social issues that many advocates talk about that need fixing or working on, that would also lend itself to lowering violence and crime.
Yeah, but you have to hold people accountable. You cannot have your social issue over here without holding people accountable over here. So that is the problem right there. So, but I think this problem right here is this here, okay? Senator Dick Durbin, which I want to talk about him in a minute too,
Okay.
right? Okay. I go to Washington, D.C. He stopped me from testifying on a subject that this important, right? He took me back to Jim Crow days, right, in my mind, okay? He did not want the citizen of Chicago to know that I was there to testify, and to stop him from continuing to not take and support these communities like the African American community, while most of the crime is at, the Latino community there as well, and as well as the white community. But he stopped me from doing that, and it was wrong.
How did preventing you from testifying, and we did get a statement from Senator Durbin, which I'll share in a minute, but how did that take you back to Jim Crow days, sir?
Well, Jim Crow days, well, when people down south, they stop you. You can't go in certain places. They stop you, all right? And up here, Dick Durbin stopped that.
So by being prevented from
Absolutely right.
testifying in that hearing, you felt stopped. The statement that we did receive from Senator Durbin reads, quote, Willie Wilson was scheduled as a witness for the majority. The decision to invite all the majority witnesses and subsequently to condense the panels and drop Wilson from the hearing was ultimately made by Chairman Grassley and his staff. But you say that it was not Chairman Grassley, that it was actually Senator Durbin.
Here's what they told me. The staff said that there was a law on the book. And that law on the book said that if anybody run against a particular senator that's set on the committee, that they could not testify. That's what was told me, all right? And so we said, okay, fine. But then afterward, I called to thank the chairman, and I said, well, I guess the reason why I couldn't get on it because of this law. And he said, no, it was not a law. It was something that is courtesy that he gave to Dick Durbin because Dick Durbin asked him to do so.
Okay. I want to get back to the National Guard and crime in Chicago, because we know from CPD data that violent crime in the city had been trending downward, save for a spike during the pandemic. Violence prevention experts, the mayor, attribute that drop in violence to interruption measures, a push for more resources like the ones that you mentioned, education, jobs, and involved a community policing approach. Are you concerned that military troops who may not be with Chicago and the police community relations here, that they could come in and hurt any progress the city has already made?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's true at all. I think the mayor is more interested in taking care of the Chicago Teacher Union, number one. He pulled police officers out of our schools and our kids, things of that nature. I think that's wrong. I think helping with the National Guard comes in to support what they have. If you can stop 20 people, 5 people from getting killed, that is a plus, all right? The last thing, I'm going to say this too, is that a couple of weeks ago, 54 people got shot, 8 of them got killed, and he's saying crime going down. Well, we don't feel it into the community.
And I think it was the school board that allowed schools to make the decision on pulling police officers from school. But to the point of the National Guard, they don't have law enforcement training. They don't have arrest authority, of course. What do you say to the critics of this move, like the mayor, like the governor, who think that the presence of federal agents is actually just stoking fear?
No, I think, look, you got to try something different than people losing their life every weekend. You got to try something different. If you continue to lose life every weekend, Chicago is smaller than New York City, but more crime. So I don't buy that at all. You know, you're going to let the mayor or the governor lose someone in their family. And if that was the case, why do the mayor have 100-some police officers on him, and Pittsburgh have police officers on him as well? Why don't you help share that with the people in the community?
All right, Mr. Willie Wilson, I know this is an issue that is personal to you, as you mentioned, losing your son 30 years ago to gun violence. Sorry for your loss, and thank you for joining us here this evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that is our show for this Wednesday night. Join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm that gives back to the community through law and philanthropy.